Oh, hello, and welcome to Aldente Rigamortis. I'm Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey, the E stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories, most creepy and most pasta, and be critically silly doing it. And tonight we have You're Never Alone, Especially in the Dark. The last story of the Won't Think Straight stories. So yeah, this is the last one, as far as I can tell. They all kind of like popped onto Reddit NoSleep around like 11 years ago. So we finally did, guys. We completed a series of stories.
Yeah.
As I stated, this is by Won't Think Straight on Reddit NoSleep. You can check it out as well as all the other ones if you wish. But yeah, before we get too far ahead, I guess I should give my initial recommendation, as should you guys. I'm not going to recommend this one.
I'm also not going to recommend this one.
Going to recommend it,
Okay,
with a maybe a low high recommendation.
I do have a caveat. Yeah, I do have a conditional. Like highest I could do is like a conditional.
Okay,
but we'll get to that. It's sort of a. Yeah, we'll get into, I guess, why we give those recommendations or non-recommendations, as it were, for the last episode, the last story of the Won't Think Straight saga. But before that, we should probably do the rundown featuring WTS. So we get one last story from WTS and his group of psychology majoring friends. This one starts with references to some of history's most villainous doctors, and the horrible experiments they did in the pursuit of science and psychology, like Mengele and Harlow. Then we get the story at hand of an individual who took inspiration from one of these men, known only as Harlow's apprentice in the story. H.A. wanted to see how far a person could go in total sensory deprivation, perhaps with the result of achieving the truest form of the self. What occurred was something a bit different. H.A. had volunteers, homeless and delinquents, who joined just to get the cash. In a completely soundproof and climate-controlled underground chamber where they were strapped to a chair in total darkness and tapped with a mic so that they could relay information to the test's observers. The test was conducted individually, and volunteers were able to stop the test by requesting it, but the longer they stayed, the more money they made. No one made it past 53 minutes. As the minutes rolled on through the start of the test, the usual symptoms of sensory deprivation kicked in, following by hallucinations. People laughing and talking would be heard, but then, as it went on, a deeper, darker sound of something approaching from behind the volunteers would occur. Eventually, as the test reached its longest limits, some kind of malevolent presence would be right behind the volunteers in their chair. It's at the very last few minutes that this thing seems to attack the test subjects, even causing physical harm to them. Over the course of the test, volunteers steadily bowed out of the experiment over various intervals of the time frame, with no fewer than 2 making it to the 53-minute mark. These test subjects never requested the end of the test. They just died. Finn. And that was a rundown for You're Never Alone, Especially in the Dark. So I suppose we should move on to Everyone Tolerates of Grand Inquisitions. At this point, I've got a fair amount, surprisingly. Yeah, so going to start with this one here. Known only as Harlow's apprentice to those who know him or who know of him, he'd been pushing the ethical boundaries in his pursuit and hunger for the unknown. So I think it should be he's been pushing the ethical boundaries, or he has been. There's just like something in there because otherwise it's he been doesn't really make sense. The next one here, known as I'm gonna fuck up this pronunciation. Known as anechoic chambers. The only strangeness are the interiors are completely covered with sound absorbent material, removing even the loudest echoes or external noises from the room. So I feel like, believe it or not, that weird name, that weird word at the beginning was not anything my problem with it. Although I think I learned a new thing. But the actual thing was the only strangeness is the interiors are completely covered with sound absorbent material. Blah 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 blah.
Or is that the interiors are?
Yeah, I'd also accept. Yeah, that would work as well.
Or the only thing strange about them is that, instead of the only strangeness.
Yeah, just it just doesn't work with that R there. So, but I'll move on to the next one. Funded by a private and wealthy benefactor, his research was to explore the human mind in its purest form, free from of all physical stimulation and senses. So I feel like it should be free from or free of all physical stimulation, not both.
Yeah, I suppose.
The next one I have, giggling and laughing would often follow as they start testing the acoustics of their strange environment, yelling and shouting, or in one instance, even yodeling, only to find the walls absorbing everything. So instead of once, it should probably be or in one instance, not once as in once upon a time, which is in the story. And my next one, this one's basically just every breath they take sounds like a thundering train passing by. Every swallow of their throat is an explosion going off in their brain. Every heartbeat is the dull thudding of a jackhammer in slow motion. So that sentence starts with a lowercase e every when it should be an uppercase e in the on the every.
Nice. Good find.
Yeah, I did it. Moving on to the next thing. This tends to varies from person to person. Some report seeing patterns of light dancing all around them. Others have reported the smell of decaying flowers or feeling frizzen all over their skin. So I think it should be this tends to vary from person to person, not this tends to varies. But also frizzen. So apparently frizzen, according to the link that it provides, so like it's done half the work for me for like having to Google an image, Google a word. But it's like a pleasurable goosebumps kind of condition on your skin, among other symptoms, usually induced by experiencing some kind of like positive stimuli. For example, like getting the good chills when you're listening to like your favorite song or something like that.
Yeah, I figured it was just like goosebumps in general.
Yeah, but like sometimes goosebumps like are usually like done in like a negative light.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it should just say goosebumps or say frisson and then put in brackets goosebumps.
Yeah. I mean, at least it does give a link to the wiki article. The wiki
for
article
sure.
of what frizzen is.
It's just kind of weird that like WTS is writing this up, who like, but it's written like this sentence specifically. It's written as if like a scientist is like writing it up.
Yeah, as if HA himself, like
Yeah.
Harlow's apprentices. Yeah.
But he's not.
Yeah, because like the story didn't come from Harlow's apprentice like to WTS because like he's not part of that circle of friends. It's like more or less it happened. Wow, it literally happened to a friend of mine, or like happened to a friend of a scientist of mine.
WTS is recounting what someone in Steve's circle recounted to him about this happening.
Wow, this really does like because I remember like early on in these stories, I mentioned like this whole thing kind of started reminding me of like Freaky Stories, the show where it happened to a friend of mine, like those kind of stories. And this one's like kind of the epitome of that. Now that I realize it.
Yeah, pretty much all of these in like every single one in this whole series is a recounting of a story.
Yeah. But yeah, so like a new word learned, yay! Like I now know what frizzen means. And I'll move on to the next thing. Some have identified these as coming from their long lost people from their past. So I feel like it should be like coming from long lost people from their past. You don't need that first there. It's just sort of like double downs.
Yeah.
And the next one I have, more than half of volunteers, in brackets 58%, have dropped off by this point. So I feel like it needs to remove that second of. Just again another word redundancy. The next one I have, by the 43 minutes have passed, the laughing has morphed into chanting from a dozen different voices. And so here, I think it should probably be reading as by the 43-minute mark. Like get rid of 43 minutes.
43 minutes have passed.
Yeah, but yeah, that would also work as well. Yeah, just something along those lines, because like as it is, it doesn't really work. And then the next one, at the 50th minute, the booming vibrations growing ever louder from behind suddenly stops. So I think it should say suddenly stop, because it in the previous part of the sentence it says the booming vibrations growing ever louder from behind suddenly stop. Like the vibrations are plural, so then the stopping part should actually be like singular.
I suppose. Yeah.
And then my last one. At this 52-minute mark, laceration marks start appearing on their arms and shoulders as participants screen to be let out. And it's screen as in like television screen. So it should be participants scream to be let out.
Maybe they had to go through a screening procedure to be let out.
I don't think that's the case.
You don't know.
I mean, you're right. I don't, but
But no, you're right.
Yeah. But that's all I've got for Grammar Inquisition. So, Mikey, E stands for evil.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah, so you got mine. So what's left is a conjunction junction.
All right.
And next stop, conjunction junction. Doot doot.
It's how Japan's infamous Unit 731, or Joseph Mengele, were allowed to commit the atrocities they did during World War II that history has so condemned. But as infamous as Harlow's work was, this story is not about him. It's about another researcher, far less known and much more private, who was fascinated by Harlow's experiments and following in his footsteps with his own take. It is the state of nirvana that so many followers of Eastern religions have sought to attain for centuries. So, an underground, soundproofed, and climate-controlled room was the next best thing, and much more practical. It's never perceived as being threatening, but all participants have described it as being as seeming sinister or unnatural. It's never in a language that the participant speaks, and has been described as ranging from Tibetan monks to Gregorian chants, or even hornets and bees singing with snakes. Finn.
So I guess the story was about an experiment to reach nirvana. I mean, that was kind of half right.
That is basically it. It's directly that in Mikey's story.
and instead of like the weird like dark presence, so we just get like Gregorian laughter. What the hell does Gregorian laughter sound like? It's like ha 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 ha. Like it's like Gregorian, instead of like reaching nirvana, they just get hornets that sing with snakes. Interesting.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
very strange.
Also, Gregorian Laughter was the name of my high school ska band. Just gotta say.
Yeah, that's fair, yeah. But sometimes we get these weird things when Mikey grabs all the sentences throughout a story that start with words that they probably shouldn't, like its, ands, or buts, because there's always better words to use.
Indeed. Gamer, do we have a grammar in yellow?
No, you got all mine.
Yes.
Yeah. 2 for 2.
Nice. All right. Well, then I suppose we'll move on to actual thoughts. So I'm going to start with this one here. For example, his experiments from the 70s, like the Pit of Despair, is, to put it mildly, some seriously fucked up shit. So this is in regards to Harry Harlow and his experiments, which there are links present in the story, like to wiki articles. And I read a couple of them and then I stopped.
I purposefully did not click on them because I did not want that information in my life.
Yeah, because like I wasn't familiar with Harry Harlow or the Japanese what was it? The Japanese Unit 731, but I was aware of Mengele as a really fucked up doctor in the World War II and such. So I read, unfortunately, I read Harry Harlow. I read about Harry Harlow and his experiments, and I'd never heard of this guy prior. Super wish I didn't know about him now or his experiments. Fuck that guy.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that was not a pleasant read.
I can imagine.
Yeah. And then the next thing we have here, so this is like right after like reading like basically that, what is it, like almost a full page about like all these horrible people in real life, in historically in real life, and then we get this. But as infamous as Harlow's work was, this story is not about him. And my reaction to that was, thank fucking God. I would probably have stopped reading, like, in all honesty. Like, I know this is a horror story, and this is like the last of the series of stories by like WontThinkStraight. But even I have like limits when it comes to like real world true horror. And like, again, the shit I read about Harlow kind of like really did not care for it at all. So I'm glad this story. Yeah.
What we got technically is about Harlow because he's continuing Harlow's research.
Well,
he's just doing it differently.
Yeah, he's drawing inspiration. And I mean, I read like the full experiments that Harlow did. I wish I hadn't, but I did. And honestly, the story, like what we got, is actually kind of tame comparatively. Didn't involve poor baby monkeys. Anyways, moving on. This actually all kind of ties into like my thoughts overall of the story, but we'll move on to the next thing here. At the 46th minute, everything suddenly stops. The participants hold their breath, and between their booming heartbeats are moments of pure silence. Until a deep voice whispers, always into their left ear for some unknown reason. He is coming. Prepare. Okay. I gotta say this. This probably should have been called the Harlow's Apprentice Experiment, or something more along those lines, as it quickly falls into the tropes of like an experiment creepypasta, like the Russian sleep experiment, the Harbinger experiment, like those kind of things. And I'm not saying that as like a bad thing necessarily, but it like definitely reminded me of like, oh, it's an experiment creepypasta, like one of those where it's just kind of giving us the rundown of this person's like crazy experiment and where something really messed up happened at the end.
Yeah, because the title of You're Never Alone, especially in the dark, like, yes, they're in the dark, but it's not just the dark.
Yeah.
It's complete isolation that's causing it. Like, if you just sit alone in your room in complete darkness, this won't happen.
Yeah, unless you get sleep paralysis, and then it's aliens.
Yes, but regardless.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just like, based on the title, it sounded like this was going to be something that is like will make you think twice about just sitting in the dark in your house, but it's not the case.
Yeah, honestly, I was expecting something completely different from what we got. As it kept going. And yeah, like the experiment thing, especially after like the page, the like the first page's like history lesson on true horror. And actually on that matter, I actually feel it both helps and hinders the story, like that first paragraph, that first page of material. Like reading yeah, well, yes, like reading that detestable stuff about like what real people have done in the pursuit of science really primed me for the creepiness and like the context of what we're about to experience. But by comparison, the rest of the story was actually pretty tame by comparison. So in terms of like the horror element of it, like what I was like, I wasn't scared for the rest of the story because what I had read about these real fucking people.
I'll say this, like, okay, you're probably right, and
Yeah.
partially because like I didn't click on any links, and I still understood the story fully. So all the mentions of Unit 731 and all those other people, and even the link to Harlow, all that
Yeah.
stuff doesn't really matter, especially because it straight up gives a TLDR on what Harlow did anyways in the story itself.
And
So
you know,
that part where it describes what he did in like a very glossed over part, that's fine in my opinion, but all the other mentions of other things don't really need to be there, I think.
honestly, I think this story didn't even really need the links to like give you a like I think what you're saying, like, yeah, no, that's what I said. Like, I'm agreeing with you. Like, I think the story, like, as it is, like, giving us the TLDR, like, rundown of like some of these things, that kind of context, I think that would have actually been sufficed. Like, that would have been better than allowing us these links to go to like the wikis and read the articles in full and just realize humanity's a fucked up species. And because it almost kind of like like it
has to live up to that.
Yeah, exactly. You have to read it. You have to live up to reality, and reality is fucked.
Yeah, but if you just give it a basic rundown of what happened and only the one instance that actually matters,
Yeah,
that actually has a connection to this, then you just have to be built up, or you're just comparable to your own rundown, which you can make as vague as possible.
exactly. Yeah. So I think honestly, this point, like less is more in that what we had here was fine. We didn't need the links that were present. Reading those, going into those links and reading that, like, kind of ruined the story a little bit for me because the story was tame in terms of its like creepiness and horror by comparison.
It's the first story that we've ever said that on, because links are always good.
Yeah, most of the time they're really good, except this one, like, yeah, like he chose some really powerful like material to draw inspiration for a creepy story. Unfortunately, that creepy story didn't live up to the actual true horror. So yeah, that's one of the reasons I really didn't care much for the story, was because I kind of got I got primed for the creepiness, and then I was kind of let down by the rest of the story because of that creepiness being too overpowering. So, but yeah, so I'll move on to the next thing I have here. At the 47th minute, those that have lasted this long have greatly elevated heart rates. What the hell did I say? Height rates? Greatly elevated heart rates, often approaching 200 beats per minute. Punctuating every dozenth beat is a deep vibration, like a heavy footstep slowly approaching from behind. Their chests are pounding like their souls want to burst free from whatever is getting closer. 93% of test subjects have yelled stop by this point, begging and crying to be released. At the 48th minute, children's voices are heard again, screaming in panic, "Run! Go before he arrives!" Okay, so again, some more stuff here. Like this part here, like this aspect of this was actually some of the stuff that was in the story that I thought was a really cool description of like the preternatural occurrences of the experiment. Like I liked this stuff, but again, it just wasn't as scary as I think it could have been if we didn't get the link stuff. Oh, I'll ignore that stuff for now. But also I'm curious here. if this is what the test observers are hearing from the lapel mic, or if this is what is being described to them by the people in the chamber, like they're hearing children. Like, is the test observer hearing run go before he arrives, or like hearing the thumping, or is that all in the other person's head, and that's what they're relaying through the lapel?
Yeah, that could be described a little bit better.
Yeah. Just a little bit, like, because I thought that was like really, that could have been really interesting if like the test subject, the test observer starts hearing the shit through the lapel.
It'd
Also,
be interesting either way. It's just, it would be nice to have clarification, even just the first time, to say like, all these noises we did not hear through the mic. It is only just what the victim technically told us.
Yeah, that's all I really kind of think I would have needed, is just like clarification that the test observer's hearing it, or if it's being relayed to them by the test subject. Also, this is my last thing that I have actually for actual thoughts. I gotta say, the percentages being used the way they were mean like next to they mean next to nothing to me by the end of the story. Mostly just because the way they were fluctuating between like how many people have left the experiment by that point and like what percentage of those people are left. Like, I just kept getting confused, or like, and in some way that was like, okay, there's this many people left, but then like this many people have left by percentage. It was like just kind of a little convoluted, and I feel like you just needed like 1%, like one set of percentages rather than like two sets of percentages, like as it progressed, to be a little bit more straightforward.
The easier way is just have a number that is this, like there were 100 test subjects.
Yeah.
At this point, there were 90 left. At this point, there were 76 left. Just do a countdown.
Yeah, exactly. That
Especially
like,
because it ends on 2, a number.
Yeah, exactly. It lands on a solid number. So it's just like, okay, you're just giving up on the percentage by the end. I felt like it would have been a clearer way of telling us like the progression of the story if it hadn't been like hadn't been convoluted with the percentages. But that's my actual thoughts for You're Never Alone, Especially in the Dark. So, Mikey, D stands for evil.
Alright, let's see here. Alright. So, my first actual thought here, I have a quote. He had often joked that his ideal experiment was to find a volunteer, break their spinal cord at the neck. At which point, reading that, I was like, congratulations, you just killed someone by breaking their spinal cord.
Yeah.
And then the next section of that sentence is, so he's severing the spinal cord to sever their optical and oral nerves. So, first of all, optical is your eyes.
Yeah.
Oral is not a thing, it's soral. And that's your ears.
Yeah.
And breaking someone's spinal cord would not cut off those nerves.
I thought it's okay. Hang on a second. Does it?
That's all just connected to your brain.
Yeah,
It's not
straight to
connected
the brain.
to your spine.
Okay, so it says break their spinal cord at the neck. Oh yeah, to sever their optic. Yeah. No, that's for some reason I thought that like and to sever the optical and nerves, like not both of them. Yeah, that makes no fucking sense. And then to cut out their tongue until all they had left was a functional brain. It's like, I'm sorry, that's not a functional brain. That's a dead brain.
Yeah. Yeah. And my note here is that unless he's experimenting on aliens, this doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah. Well, clearly this is in the Fallout universe, and this is just like the starting of the Robo Brain.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Where they just take like a human brain and slot it into a robot's body with like various diodes and such. and
Right.
medical gel.
All right. And my next actual thought here is that they're going for sensory deprivation.
Yeah.
Of which there's something called a sensory deprivation tank,
Mm-hmm.
which has been available commercially since the 1970s. The
Yeah.
negative decibel room, which, as far as I can Google, has only been around since the beginning of the millennium. So, if this quote unquote doctor was up on his rating, he would know that there's a sensory deprivation tank that will do what he wants it to do.
Unless he's really just trying to con that rich benefactor out of more money.
He's trying to use like bleeding edge equipment. That's why he doesn't want to use the old stuff. He wants to use the new stuff.
Also, it's almost like he's a mad scientist, and so is a little
Yeah.
irrational about his rational tests.
Yeah, but I mean, even scientists should, look up what the existing science is,
Yeah,
so that they know what they're doing.
that's fair.
All right, and then my next actual thought here: by the 25-minute mark, 81% of participants have been quiet enough to notice that their internal body sounds are now greatly amplified as their minds straining for even the slightest input they can get. Every breath they take sounds like thundering train passing by. Every swallow of their throat is an explosion going off in their brain. Every heartbeat is the dull thudding of a jackhammer in slow motion. So, my note here is that they don't go far enough. Like learning about the negative decibel rooms, there's a lot more that happens. Like hearing your eyes blink, hearing your bones and muscles when you move them, hearing your stomach and bowels gurgling that you don't normally hear. Like these are things that happen in that experiment or that type of room that
Yeah.
weren't talked about.
God, that would be freaking horrifying. Just suddenly hearing all the words that or not words, suddenly hearing all the sounds that you're like accustomed to, like just like kind of canceling out.
Yeah. Well, and the reason we canceled out is because the average or average level of decibels is about 30 decibels.
Yeah.
So you already have sound canceling out other sounds.
True.
That's why you need a deprivation tank chamber thing to even be able to hear them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And then my next note here, I go a little critically silly.
Excellent. Love to hear it.
At the 34-minute mark, a quarter of the remaining volunteers reported hearing Morse code, faintly at first, but growing louder against the noises from their own body. All of them report 3 dots, 3 dashes, 3 dots, then a stream of gibberish. To which my response is, oh, so they can hear the SOS commercial that used to be on TV with the pans doing Morse code saying clean us.
I'm sorry.
I think that's a deep cut.
That is I do not remember this one.
Yeah, so the true horror is that they're getting commercials sent straight into their brains.
Oh God,
God.
they're deprivated so well. They're getting now the subliminal messages in the airwaves from old commercials. The ghosts of commercials.
Yeah,
My God.
and that's the end of my actual thoughts.
Okay. gamer.
Let's see what I have left. Well, my first one is just basically on how I appreciated the formatting of the story. Like, it's formatted pretty nicely. It's got hyperlinks, which I thought were nice, but I guess they're technically not good in the end.
Some of them were, but like some of them some of them were nice, but then like some of them were like almost too overpowering.
The Goosebump one's good.
yeah, the Goosebump one was fun.
Yeah, there's no use of italics, I think.
Actually,
Is there?
if you go to the very if you go to the end of almost every do you know where those dividing lines are?
Even
there's
so,
one,
no one has ever lasted more than 53 minutes. Is in
and
italics.
and at the very end, the last one is no one has ever lasted more than 53 minutes. Yeah,
God, I hate italics. You can't see them.
honestly,
I know I'm a broken record, but goddamn.
I know. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
I think those are the only two versions in the story. No, I see a negative. Like near the top, near like the first page, it's like normally used for recording music, blah 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 blah. Their ambient noise levels are often measured in italics, negative out of italics decibels. So, but like I can barely notice it. Like even I'm like struggling to notice.
This is what I hate. They're there for emphasis, but they don't emphasize shit because half the time you don't even notice they're there. Bold or all caps or nothing. Moving on.
Exactly. Yeah. End of discussion.
Yes, I have spoken. My next one.
This is the way.
Yes. So I have a question for you guys. At what minute marker would you guys ask to be let out?
I don't.
Like
I don't
10,
do well.
I did a TLDR of each one. At the 10-minute mark, the lights go out. At 20 minutes, you start feeling lonely. At 25 minutes, it's loud enough, or your body sounds you can hear. At 30 minutes, you start hallucinating and reliving traumatic past experiences. 34 minutes, you start hearing Morse code. 37 minutes, the room gets warmer and there's indistinct voices calling to you. 39 minutes, children are laughing in a high pitch and there's signs of anxiety. 43 minutes, there's unknown voices speaking in a language that you don't understand. 46, there's total silence, and then he's coming, prepare, gets whispered in your ear, which is probably when I back out. Like, you know what, I'm done. 47, then you get a high heart rate, heavy footsteps from behind. 48, temperature drop, children's voices return saying, run, go before he arrives. Then 49, voices describe, a voice describes how you'll die. Then there's loud steps and then silence at 50 minutes. 51, there's complete silence, breath on the back of your neck, a bad smell and a lick at your neck. 52, there's lacerations that start on your arms, shoulders and neck, and then 53, you die.
So, do you want the real answer?
Yes.
Okay, so
Lights out, I'm out. I'm scared of the dark.
I'd like to think that I'd like bow out probably by the hallucinations of dealing with like some of my traumatic stuff.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think I wouldn't even make it past like halfway through the normal sensory deprivation shit. Because little known fact about the cultist, I don't do well in tight dark spaces.
Claustrophobic.
So yeah, I'm a little claustrophobic.
Gotcha.
So if I was like bound to a chair in a dark room that like all I can hear is my own body like moving and like sounds and stuff like that, I think that would get to me by the 20-minute mark.
I love quiet because I don't get enough of it. So whenever I get quiet, it's like, So you know what? Tie me to that chair. I'll stay there for a little while until I start hearing voices. Then I'm out.
Yeah. Mikey?
All right. So thinking about it, I would probably start giggling like a madman at the 25 mark, because the sound of my own internal organs would just weird me out.
Yeah.
But I might make it to the 34-minute mark and then note out when I'm hearing commercials.
For sure.
I see that you've sent a link about the SOS dirty pots. Also, when you said it, when you talked about this commercial earlier, I swear to God, I thought you said pants, not pots. All I could think
Very
of was
different commercial.
like dirty pants, like a laundry commercial or something, not like a dish commercial. But yeah, I don't think I'd last very long. I think I maybe 20 minutes. Like once the hallucinations started and and I started reliving like some of my like cringiest and like darkest past stuff, I was like, no, I'm done. don't want to deal with that.
That shit's already in my head. I don't need it coming to the forefront.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair. And then moving on, it says at the 52-minute mark, laceration marks. First off, double mark is kind of annoying.
Yeah.
Accidental additional grammar thing. At the 52-minute point, laceration, or just remove the laceration mark. Just say lacerations.
Or like at 52 minutes.
Or, no, I mean, you can still say at the 52-minute mark, lacerations start appearing on their arms.
Yeah, because
lacerations themselves are marks. So they're technically saying marks.
Yeah.
At the 52-minute mark, marks start appearing on their arms and shoulders as participants screen to be let out. If you go through a screening process, deep lacerations on the neck have also been found, requiring hospitalization. Okay. This part here, I feel like is glossed over a little too quick because it just says that the lacerations just appear. So first off, how do they know? Because as far as I know, there's no cameras in the room, and the room is pitch black anyways. So are the victims describing that they're feeling someone cutting into them, or are they just seeing the damage when the test stops?
Well, how can they see it?
When the test stops.
Yeah. So I like my brain like took a second and like lagged.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, because like I feel like it's probably like they're describing like probably the pain and like asking to stop because they're feeling like slits or like slices on their arm and stuff like that.
But it doesn't say at the 52-minute point, subjects report feeling lacerations on their arms, shoulders, and neck.
Yeah, but it should, because that is the only way like the test observers are getting any data from there, because it's been established there is no camera.
Well, it doesn't specifically say that there aren't. It says that there's no speaker in there for them to talk to them. For the observers to talk to the subjects. There's no speaker. But it doesn't straight up say that there's no camera. And if there are cameras, it's possible that they have night vision on them so they could see through the darkness.
Yeah, and if that's the case, though, then there's a missed opportunity here, because like it should like reveal that like, despite what the test subjects are saying about like hearing like some weird like thing coming toward them, or maybe like they're hearing some weird like steps coming toward them and like the hot breath and such, the cameras aren't picking up anything in the dark.
Or they are.
Or they are, yeah. Oh yeah, but again,
you could straight up see it in night vision.
Yeah, but I think it would be scary if it wasn't there, like it wasn't being picked up. Like it's just like the camera's just showing the person in the chair, and then suddenly like lacerations are like forming on their skin.
I don't know. It's scary either way, because it's scary in the same way that the corner goat demon is scary for the same reason, because you could see him with the night vision.
Yeah, that's
he's there. You can believe your eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely something that should have been like added to the story, is the camera, like a mention of a camera in the room,
or even just a mention of a lack of camera, and that, and all these lines where it's saying at this point this happens. It should be at this point the subject reports this.
Yeah.
Because that's, as far as I can tell, reading the words that are on the page, the only way that they're getting information is what the subject says to their mic, I think. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's not clear, and it's not clear enough with that to that point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then my last note is on the ending, and I kind of feel the last section of the test falls really flat. Like, not to down talk someone dying from this, but everything up until this point is described pretty well. Like, it goes into detail of what they're saying, not enough in some instances, like I literally just talked about. But then at the end, it's just neither survived.
Yeah.
So did they die from bleeding through the neck wound? Did more lacerations keep happening? Did their skin tear from their flesh like the voice said it would? Like,
Yeah,
this is the end. This is the climax of the whole thing. This is what everything's building up to, and it just says neither survived.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the ending myself, because like we don't even get, like, usually with these WTS stories we also get like a little like after report or like something from WTS to kind of bring it all home. This one we don't get anything. It ends at the end of the experiment. And we get
like drop them out.
Yeah, exactly. And like I think what he was trying to go for in this part, like outside of like having a kind of a wraparound for the story as a whole, is like a less is more, like just leave it to the imagination how they died. But it doesn't really work.
The whole story is more.
Yeah. The whole story has, up to this point, has been more is more, but both for better and or for ill. So, and then at the end, it's just like, oh well, they neither survived. I'm not going to tell you how they died. We're just going to leave it at that. There's lacerations are probably involved.
But like,
maybe
with some stories, that's fine. That's left to the imagination. But this whole, it's essentially report. This whole report is giving us highly detailed stuff at every minute mark.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is based on giving us details, although some not enough details, but still details nonetheless. But the one that has the least amount of detail is how the two died, which is I would think, the most important note of this whole experiment is by the end, these people died. Like, maybe it's, like, they don't know what it is, like, what caused it, but have some theories there. Like, find out what it is. Like, was there an autopsy done on the body? What happened to it, you know? There's so many ways it can go, and it goes in none of them.
Like, you could even have, like, neither survived as far as we know, because we never found the body. Like, the body just there's just a bloody pool where the body was, and the body's gone out of the darkness. That would have been fucking cool.
I mean, the creature said what it's going to do to them, so maybe that's what happened. But I wish that it clarified that's what happened. Neither of them survived. When the lights came back on, it was a skinless, like, body tied to the chair with no life signs.
Yeah. Or like the way I'd maybe even end the story is like, they never called for the experiment to stop. Neither survived. No one has ever made, and then like maybe either keep that never, no one has ever like made it past the 53-minute mark and add this, or remove that and replace it with, the presence makes good on its threat.
Yeah. Even just that, because it was already described what was going to happen, but that clarified, okay, that's what happened.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Totally agree.
But that's about all I got left for notes.
Okay. Then I suppose we'll move on to final thoughts. Yeah, not gonna lie, this one's a bit of a mixed bag for me. It keeps the themes of the series as a whole. Like, there are things out there that make us question our mundane reality, and like, it definitely follows. There was definitely it's sort of tied into to some of the other stories of like things being beyond our perception, like the goat demon in the corner, the burn man, like all the various like other like creatures and things that like people have seen throughout these stories. And then this is just another experiment that just proves like those things are just on the threshold, or like just beyond the veil of our own reality. But between the skeevy real world horror examples that were provided in links, like that whole link situation that we mentioned earlier, for me, it overshadowed the story's main plot and its own creepy tones. and sort of rendered it a lackluster ending. For not just the story, like we kind of brought up, but also like kind of for the Won't Think Straight stories. Like, I'm not sure how to feel about this, especially since it is like the last one we've got, and like it's been 11 years since this one was posted. So I doubt we're gonna get another one or any new like a new update. It seems like WTS is done with the series.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I thought that like all this shit happening to him, by the end of it, he was gonna be like these creatures were gonna be coming back and all like hassling him, like tag teaming him.
Yeah, I thought there was gonna we had talked early on, I think, about like, oh, wouldn't it be fun if like all these stories kind of culminated in like kind of a gathering of like things. Like he's setting up his own like cinematic universe.
Pretty much. Because like at least one of these entities should be actively stalking him. Like I think the toilet demon one should still be actively stalking him.
First time it was a toilet ghost, not quite a demon, but
close enough.
There are also demons. Like honestly, like I think we've seen the same demon like 3 or 4 times through 3 different occurrences. Like I'm not entirely unconvinced that the goat demon from the corner isn't like the same one from like other stories that have been mentioned of like a malevolent force.
This thing could be a goat demon for all we know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like again, there's a bunch of like these like people out there that have like special powers. There's also like again like this is also the same one that gave us the bigger fish. So like that weird thing where like all the only the people's feet in their shoes were found on a boat. Like there's a bunch of crazy stuff in the series that it all seemed like it was kind of culminating to something, but I guess it was just kind of culminating in like they're just a collection of stories that kind of make you question mundane reality. I guess that's it. We're not getting any big like final climax kind of thing. And I was kind of like, and maybe that's on me or us. Like maybe that's something that we just wished like that would have been really cool for the series, but like that was something we inserted in terms of expectations
are too high. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know, like it's just like I liked elements of it. Mostly for the story's own experiment descriptions, not the real world stuff. That stuff is just really fucked up and kind of overpowers the story. Personally,
reading that creeped you out.
Dude, it's fucked up. It is so fucked up.
I'm just saying the end result of this story left you more creeped out than most creepypastas.
Yeah, but for the wrong reasons. Like,
yeah,
like I might as well like I could have gotten the same experience had I just read about Harry Harlow or whatever the fuck his face is on Wikipedia. Like
the story could just be like title, like in the title, like there's just the title and then there's just a hyperlink to Harlow and that's it. like that's like I don't like that wasn't the point of the story. The point of the story was this like experiment that was created by somebody who was inspired by this crazy guy. But I found that the real world crazy guy was more fucked up than the experiment I read by comparison. And it sort of left me a little hollow about like the because like I like some of the weird shit that we got in this experiment, in this writing, but it wasn't creepy enough anymore. It was downplayed by comparison. So yeah. So basically, because the researchers were trying to do this as nice as possible to these people, giving them like a safe word to get out. Basically, that's the problem. It would have felt more fitting if the researchers were actually fucked up individuals as well, and like kidnap people to do this or something.
Yeah, that
like against their will.
If that had been brought up, like if it hadn't been like just like a cash reward kind of thing, like if it had been like he kidnapped like orphans or the elderly or something, like something fucked up like that, that might have helped amp up the like the direness of the situation and made it a little bit more like put it on par with the real world creepiness. But like it's just like I just don't think I can recommend it because it fell short for me. And I mean,
also
certainly
be exposing other people to what these real people did too.
Well, and that's part of my conditional recommendation aspect for this story is like I'd have to read the room of like and once I finished reading the story, that's why I sent you guys a message like earlier like off recording and stuff of that, like before we even before we started today, was like warning you like that this story deals with some weird some dark real world shit as examples. So like
I didn't take that as the way that it came out. I took that as like it was going to be Baraska style, where like real world creepy shit, but not actually happening stuff.
Honestly, like that's kind of what this story had to do to make it like to make it fully scary, like all the way through, was go Baraska.
You never go full Baraska.
You never go Baraska. Yeah, exactly. Like, because like again, like I can't stop iterating that like I found the rest of the story tame by comparison to the wiki page that was linked that I read about a real fucked up human being.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a shame.
Yeah, like that. I feel like shit for like because like also this is the last story in this series of stories by WontThinkStraight, and it didn't go out with a bang. It went out with kind of a whimper for me. So, but yeah, I don't think I can recommend this. If I did, I would probably conditionally recommend it. Like I'd read, like I'd warn who I was getting to read this. Or I wouldn't recommend this to certain people.
Or just say, don't click hyperlinks.
Yeah, exactly.
Fission is goosebumps. Don't click hyperlinks.
Yeah, don't read the other ones. Just use the. And again, like something you brought up earlier that makes 100%. Those earlier links don't even need to be there because what the story gives us is like a TLDR like explanation, gives us the context, and probably would have made the story a bit better for me because it wouldn't have given me like the full horror context of those real people.
It still like explains what he did. So like it's still fucked up reading that.
There's worse.
I imagine there is.
It is so much worse.
I don't want to know.
No, you don't. I'm actively not saying what.
Yeah.
And anybody out there who's like being reverse psychologied by me, if you are, read at your own fucking risk.
I don't actually want you to research this guy. Please don't.
Yeah. This isn't reverse psychology.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah. Like, I feel shittier as a human being for what he did. So.
Guilty by association because you're human as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that song, I'm Only Human After All, I will put the blame on Carlo.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy. I'm glad he's dead. My tirade is over. I'm done.
Okay.
Mikey, these stands for evil.
Alright. Let's take this back to the beginning. Oh, hello.
Damn it.
The name for the story.
Yeah.
You're never alone, especially in the dark. For me, that doesn't work when the majority of the story is about being in a negative decibel room. Well, yes, they're in the dark, but it's more what happens in the negative decibel room that's happening.
Yeah, I think it was trying to get across, like, we're never alone, like, as people, because there's these things just beyond, like, the veil. But it's still not a very good title.
Yeah.
You could have done like anything else, like silence is not golden. In all caps, not.
Yeah. Or like again, we could have had like the silent room experiment or something like that.
Yeah.
Or the negative sound or the negative decibel room experiment.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
It is an experiment.
Yeah, or however you spell that or pronounce that word for that chamber that I can't pronounce properly. Like Akaok or something like that.
Yeah. Close enough.
Yeah.
All right. And then continuing on, the crazy scientist researcher that doesn't do his research.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
you have one job and you failed.
To be fair to the fiction of crazy mad scientists, very often the reason why the horror story starts is because the mad scientist doesn't follow logic. Because they are mad or crazy.
Remember, we are also hearing this from a friend of a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sure stuff has been lost in translation.
Yeah.
All right. And then this next note here is totally a personal thing. So, trying to take something cool, negative decibel rooms, and make it creepy is totally uncool in my mind.
I mean, see, I'm the opposite. I do think it's really cool to make something that's cool creepy, like a cool idea or location.
Yeah, but I mean, the negative decibel room is already cool enough that I do want to visit one at some point.
You don't want it nagging in the back of your head that you might get lacerated from being in there if you're in there too long.
Yeah, and I mean, in real life, you can rent it out for an hour.
Yeah,
So,
well, but can you turn off all the lights and stuff like that too, or?
I don't know that much, but the fact that you can rent it out for an hour means that people last an hour. Well, they might not last the full hour, but
yeah,
I
I have actually heard like it's very hard. It is actually fairly uncomfortable to stay in those places long.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it is disorienting. They do have a chair because you need to sit down. Standing isn't really an option.
Yeah.
They'll tie you to it. They will turn the lights off.
You will experience beach.
Yeah.
So when the real life portion of a negative decibel room is cooler than what we get in the story because they left out so much of the stuff about the negative decibel rooms, it just left me disappointed.
It's not about the negative decibel room. It's about the results of.
Gamer, did you not realize that he did a pun?
I assumed because you said but I didn't get it and I was in the middle of a thought. Huh?
Disappointed? Like decibel and disappointed? That's what he did.
Oh! I love hanging on that for a stupid long time.
Yeah, future me, don't remove that long. Don't
leave that. Leave that right there.
Yeah, keep that ...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Put in like a 56K modem dial-up sound.
Yeah. So, as it stands, I'm not going to recommend this story.
Fair. Gamer.
Okay, so I came into this recording somewhat positive because by the end of it, the experiment and like seeing what happens throughout it, that was relatively enjoyable to me. Like it was neat seeing or hearing about the creature that shows up and all that. So the results of the experiment were interesting, but you do bring up good points that exposing other people to these real life things that happened for realsies and serious is probably not the best move because A, it's just going to make people feel like shit, and B, you have to live up to that with what follows. And from the sounds of it, that would be damn near impossible. So with those links removed and with other things, with the final death described better, I would recommend this. But as it stands, the best I can give it is a partial, but I'm probably going to lean on not, just because of the fact that you're exposing people to these fucked up Wikipedia articles that no one should read.
Well, and
I mean, the knowledge is power and everything, but
it is good to know, like, to learn history and like to learn like the like for good or ill the history of our people, like the human race and stuff, and like how fucked up we are, because that's how we learn from our mistakes. It's just if you're not expecting it, it can really fuck your day up.
Yeah. And when did it happen?
What do you mean?
The events of the links.
It happened in the 60s or in the 70s. I think he was conducting these experiments.
Yeah, and
Arlo
there's something to do with like after World War II and stuff like that. During
Yeah.
World War II.
Yeah,
was the
Mengele
unit.
and Unit 731, I believe, were like Mengele was a German, and then Unit 731 was the Japanese during World War II.
Yeah.
Like Mengele is responsible for a bunch of heinous shit, like medical heinous shit, but also like it did help us, but it also fucked up. Like at what cost, sort of thing. Like
But what I'm getting at with asking the time frame is like, at least that was way back when we didn't know any better. Like if this was linking stuff that was like post 2000,
oh, that
I
would
would be
suck.
like, yeah, the human race is doomed at that point if that's the case.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'd like to think that we, like, as a species now, are a bit more above that. But I mean, like, reading this kind of stuff really just kind of brings to the forefront the worst in people.
We are above that. There are still some heinous people out there for sure.
Yeah, we shouldn't like, oh yeah, we're so much superior. No, we're still kind of fucked up. But
for sure.
Yeah, this stuff happened in like what's the examples that were given are historical. Like they are World War II and like 1970s. I think the latest was Harlow. So, but it's still not fun.
No, it's really not.
No. But again, I actually do agree with you. Like, I think if the links had been removed and we just got like what we had in the story and the ending had been fixed, I might be able to like maybe recommend the story. But yeah.
Because the effects of the experiment are neat. It's just the way it's executed and compared to the previous stuff is not ideal.
Yeah. But
so, as it stands, I'll leave it on a I don't know. Partial. I'll leave it partial recommendation because I still enjoyed part of it.
That's fine. If you still like partially recommend it, like that's 100% fine.
You'll think less of me, but that's fine.
No,
I can't think any worse of you.
You're already at the bottom of the barrel.
Great. That's actually really freeing.
You can only go up from here.
Thanks.
No, I kid.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, okay. So I guess that'll do it for this week's episode. 2 non-recommendations and 1 partial. Definitely room for improvement.
Now,
so
what about the story or the series as a whole?
Oh, Jesus. Honestly, I would recommend the series as a whole because it is because if you don't, but tell people like it's not like a it's not not
going anywhere.
Yeah, it's just
Which
a collection.
Sounds bad. That's not what.
I understand what you mean. Like it's a collection of stories that all have very similar themes that the person who's writing them is trying to get across. But they don't. It doesn't have a conclusive end. It just has these. They're just all examples of like these events that make you question the mundane world.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not. It is more of a series of one shots rather than an overarching campaign, or an overarching series. Yeah.
It's your tabletop reference because you didn't bring one up this time.
Yeah. I mean, writing wise, this is basically like it's a series of standalones rather than a standalone complex, which is a series of standalones that have a overarching like narrative, which this story it seemed like some of these did, but then it doesn't execute that ending or it stops. So it's really just a collection of stories.
Yeah, I really thought it was going to have an overarching story because it's like all these characters interacting with each other and
there's references from like the previous ones and stuff like that, like in like a little blurb at the beginning and the end sometimes.
Yep.
And you know what? I'm actually kind of sad. Like here's something that I'm deeply sad about for the Won't Think Straight stories now that we've finished them all. We never got a sequel or like a sort of a check-in or like a sequel story to Burgles and Gunman. Gurgles and Bugman.
That would be the sequel name.
Yeah, Burgles and Gunman.
Yes.
But like, because like Gurgles and Bugman was like one of the reasons we dove into this series because of the name, obviously, but also like we were really excited, like like they're still out there, so like wouldn't it be cool if they came back after our narrator here Won't Think Straight. But but it never happens. So I guess like 11 years is a long time. There is like, if the person's still out there and like they're still writing stories, maybe they'll come back and post something. But yeah, at the moment it just seems like I'd still recommend the series to like these stories to people. Maybe not like all of them, but I'd recommend the bulk of them to people.
Overall, it was a relatively good, competent series.
Yeah. Yeah, on the whole it was good.
Yeah.
Mikey, your
But for me, on the whole, it was negative. There were a couple
Not recommend most of
ones
them.
that I liked, but yeah, there's no overarching story. They're not really connected as a series. I mean, like, they are just really individual stories. They shouldn't really be treated as a series, except for when they're mentioned at the beginning of another story.
well, I mean,
That they're
okay,
tied
Is it
together.
referred to as a series? Because we call it a series.
well, it's really just a series because it's like, I mean, they're all linked. Like they all have links to like the next story in the series. It's a
Makes
Reddit
it sound
notes
like-
series.
Which makes it sound like you need the previous information to understand what's going on.
But really,
Which
you,
in most
you
cases
don't.
you don't.
Yeah, for the most part in this series, like it gives you kind of the option to like you can go and read those other stories, but you can also just read the story, like the contents of the story you're currently on, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
So I guess that's sort of a strength to it in that regard,
Yeah.
is that like you don't need to go read the whole series. You can just read, like, pick and choose.
It's like the Zelda series of games. You can just pick one up and play it. It does not matter. They'll
Yeah,
reference
like-
previous stuff, sure, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So in that regard, each story is individual and it's not really a series per se. But if I recall correctly, I was mostly a negative Nancy about them, so I'm not going to recommend the series.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. Well, I guess that'll do it for You're Never Alone, Especially in the Dark, and the Won't Think Straight saga as a whole. So, if you like what you heard, or if you didn't, leave us a comment in the comment section below where this gets posted. Two of us are on Blue Sky. Mikey is at the East Ends for Evil. I'm at Review Cultist. You can also send us emails at aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. Where you can also leave us suggestions for other creepypastas, SCPs, spooky things. You creep it, we'll peep it. Yeah! And if you'd like to help support our show financially, we can go to Patreon. We have special episodes, early access, and extra content. To our patrons that are helping support the show, thank you immensely. You're helping keep those hosting bills at bay. And as always, we very much appreciate that. And to our listeners and the authors of these stories, thank you immensely, because without your listenership, it'd be like screaming into the deep, dark, negative decibel room, waiting for a strange presence to come right up to us, lick us, and then lacerate us. And to the authors of these stories, Won't Think Straight specifically, I guess in this case, for writing these stories and posting them on Reddit for people to read, enjoy, get spooked by. We really wouldn't have much of a show because we'd have nothing to talk about. So thank you. Until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey, the E stands for Evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And this has been Al Dente Rigamortis. Sleep well.